Breaking news has detonated across the NFL, and it's shaking the league to its core. Imagine this, a rival franchise drops a jaw-dropping $90 million offer, not just to sign Shedeur Sanders, but to rip him straight out of Cleveland and build their entire future around him. We're not talking about a standard contract here, this is warfare. Guaranteed money, endorsement power, coaching control, everything designed to make his departure inevitable. For Browns fans, the timing couldn't be worse. The team's most electrifying player, the quarterback who single-handedly revived the franchise and turned Cleveland into must-watch television, is now at the center of a tug-of-war that could define the NFL for the next decade. But how did it come to this? How could a rookie contract quarterback even be in position to receive this kind of blockbuster deal? And more importantly, is this the beginning of Cleveland's collapse, or just the opening chapter of a league-wide revolution? The details of this offer are nothing short of staggering. Sources say the rival franchise isn't just throwing out a paycheck, they're rewriting the rules of quarterback contracts entirely. We're hearing about $65 million guaranteed up front, endorsement deals structured to maximize Sanders' brand, and even a percentage of merchandise sales tied directly to his name. But it doesn't stop there. This package reportedly includes unheard-of perks, approval power over key offensive coaching hires, access to a personal chef and private security team, and even private jet privileges. These are the kind of demands usually reserved for 10-year veterans, not a second-year player still technically under a rookie contract. And yet that's exactly the point. This isn't a negotiation, it's a hostile takeover. The rival franchise is making one thing painfully clear. They don't just want Shedeur Sanders, they're ready to build their entire empire around him. But here's where it gets even more explosive. The question everyone's asking is, why is Sanders even in this position to begin with? To understand why this offer even exists, you have to look inside Cleveland's own locker room, and all signs point to one man, head coach Kevin Stefanski. Despite Sanders proving himself every time he touched the field, delivering explosive plays, electrifying the crowd, and lifting the entire roster, Stefanski refused to hand him the starting job. Instead, he stuck with Dillon Gabriel, a decision that baffled fans, divided the locker room, and raised serious questions about the coach's judgment. The breaking point came against the Baltimore Ravens. With the entire nation watching, Cleveland's offense collapsed without Sanders under center. The Ravens' defense wasn't just dominating, they were laughing on the sidelines, mocking the Browns' predictable play calling. Even former NFL players took to social media, stunned at what they were witnessing. That game didn't just expose Cleveland's offensive flaws, it exposed a deeper problem, a coach unwilling to adapt, even at the cost of his own team's success. And for Sanders, that humiliation was the final straw. Inside the Browns facility, tension had been simmering for weeks. But after the Ravens game, the pot finally boiled over. Shedeur Sanders, who had done everything the organization asked of him, walked straight into Kevin Stefanski's office with one burning question: why am I not your starter? What happened next was described by insiders as a clash of egos unlike anything Cleveland had seen in years. Sanders didn't sugarcoat it. He challenged Stefanski's system, his stubborn reliance on Gabriel, and the very direction of the offense. He pointed to the numbers, the wins left on the table, and the humiliation the team suffered on national television. Stefanski, instead of relenting, doubled down. He defended his philosophy, insisting that Gabriel fit the scheme better, that patience was required, that Sanders still had things to prove. To Sanders, it sounded like excuses. To witnesses, it sounded like two men on a collision course. The meeting ended abruptly. Sanders stormed out without so much as a word to his teammates. No dap, no handshake, no rallying speech, nothing. For a player known as a unifier, that silence was deafening. It wasn't just frustration anymore, it was disillusionment. And the NFL noticed immediately. Rival executives, already intrigued by Cleveland's mishandling of their young star, now smelled blood in the water. A quarterback this gifted, this marketable, this angry at his own organization, that's the kind of storm front that makes front offices open their wallets without hesitation. What began as a coaching decision had now snowballed into a league-wide feeding frenzy.
The main thing about
the confrontation behind closed doors was bad enough. But once Sanders walked out of that office, the ripple effect tore through the entire building. Defensive leaders were furious. They'd watched Sanders energize the offense every time he took the field, and now the possibility of losing him felt like betrayal. Wide receivers who knew their stats and careers depended on his arm were openly questioning why the team's best weapon was being wasted. Even the offensive linemen, the ones who put their bodies on the line to protect him, felt insulted that their work might be for nothing if Sanders walked. One veteran reportedly stood in front of the team and said it bluntly, "If they let him leave, we might as well blow the whole thing up." But it wasn't just inside the locker room. Outside, the fan base went nuclear. Social media erupted in a matter of hours, with
I'm playing
hashtags
for a lot
calling for
more than just me,
Stefanski's firing trending nationwide. A petition demanding the coach's removal hit 100,000 signatures overnight. Season ticket holders threatened mass cancellations, and corporate sponsors, sensing a public relations disaster, began requesting emergency meetings with ownership. The Browns, once riding the wave of renewed hope with Sanders at the center, were now staring at the brink of total collapse, not just on the field, but financially and culturally. And the worst part? Browns owner Jimmy Haslam suddenly found himself trapped in a nightmare of his own making. On one side was Kevin Stefanski, the coach he'd backed for years, the architect of the current regime. On the other was Shedeur Sanders, the face of the future, a quarterback with the talent to change the entire trajectory of the franchise, but now on the verge of walking out the door. For Haslam, it wasn't just about football anymore. This was about money, reputation, and survival. Sanders had become more than a quarterback. He was a marketing machine. Merch sales had spiked since his arrival. National broadcast featuring Cleveland had drawn record ratings. Even sponsors who had ignored the Browns for decades were suddenly investing in the brand. Losing Sanders meant losing all of that overnight. Yet firing Stefanski wasn't a clean solution either. The coach had allies in the front office, and a track record ownership could lean on. Cutting him loose mid-season would be an admission of failure, the kind of public humiliation owners dread more than losing games. So Haslam sat with two folders on his desk, one labeled Extend Sanders and the other labeled Back Stefanski. Sources say he was torn, pacing his office into the early hours of the morning, fielding calls from advisors and weighing whether to gamble on loyalty or throw his full support behind the future. The clock was ticking, because while Cleveland hesitated, rival franchises were already making moves in the shadows. While Cleveland scrambled in chaos, another franchise was moving with surgical precision. Multiple league insiders confirmed that a rival organization desperate for a quarterback and willing to burn bridges to get one had prepared an unprecedented offer for Shedeur Sanders. The numbers? Nothing short of earth-shattering. A $90 million deal with nearly $65 million guaranteed up front. But it wasn't just the money. This was an offer unlike anything the league had ever seen. Total offensive control. Sanders wouldn't just run the playbook, he would help design it. Hand-picked weapons. The team promised to target free agents and draft picks based on Sanders' preferences. Endorsement empire. Sources say the deal included partnerships with major brands lined up to explode his star power far beyond the field. In other words, this wasn't a contract. This was a coup, a package designed to rip Sanders out of Cleveland and install him as the centerpiece of a new dynasty. The message was clear. While the Browns argued over politics and loyalty, the rest of the NFL was ready to pay the price for generational talent. For Cleveland, the clock had officially hit zero. Either they matched the commitment, or they risked becoming the franchise forever known as the team that lost Shedeur Sanders. The moment the $90 million figure hit the airwaves, the NFL landscape exploded. Social media melted down within minutes. Fans flooded timelines, stunned that a rookie quarterback could command a deal this massive. Some praised Sanders as the future of football, a once-in-a-generation star finally getting the respect he deserved. Others called it reckless, warning that one player should never hold this kind of leverage. Inside the league offices, executives were reportedly furious. The offer threatened to break the salary structure wide open, rewriting what young quarterbacks could demand before even proving themselves over multiple seasons. Rival general managers scrambled, debating whether to push back against what some labeled contract anarchy. But the loudest voices came from players themselves. Veterans who'd fought for years to earn half of what Sanders was being promised spoke up. Some supportive, some jealous, all aware that the game was changing in real time. And Cleveland? Their front office found themselves cornered. Fans demanded answers. Local media blasted leadership for letting the situation spiral into open warfare. Every hour they delayed a response made it look more likely they'd lose the most electrifying young quarterback in the league. The question now wasn't just about money. It was about pride, power, and the future of the NFL. Would Cleveland dig in and risk collapse, or bend to history and meet the demand? Now the NFL stands at a crossroads. Shedeur Sanders isn't just negotiating a contract, he's redefining the power structure of the entire league. For Cleveland, the stakes couldn't be higher. Either they lock in their future by matching the kind of commitment no one thought possible, or they watch another franchise swoop in and build an empire around their crown jewel. The fans are restless, the locker room is split, the front office is silent, and Sanders, he hasn't said a word publicly, letting the chaos swirl while his value climbs by the second. What happens next could shatter everything we thought we knew about how this game works. Will Cleveland rise to the challenge and protect their franchise quarterback, or will we witness the most shocking player move in modern football history? One thing's certain, the Shedeur Sanders saga is just beginning, and the next headline might change the NFL forever.